It is 7:07. If we can get the roll call. Thank you, Stephanie.
Commissioner Dillard,
Here.
Commissioner Gathua,
Here.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Krebs,
Here.
Commissioner Simmons,
Here.
and Commissioner Tassinari.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I will read the Native American land acknowledgement, and it says, "We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of the Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossess indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations." Next is the approval of meeting minutes. I'll put a motion forward.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes from August 17th, and I will edit the attendance sheet on the back to reflect that Commissioner Simmons and Tassinari were not absent on August 1st or 2nd, and give those dashes there since they weren't notified of the appointments. Okay. So, Commissioner Dillard?
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Krebs,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Tassinari.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next, I'll move to public comment of items not on the agenda. First, we'll start with anyone online. Is there anyone online? And if you would like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda for tonight, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward to agenda item number 5, which is our TRC logo selection. Stephanie, would you be able to pull it up for us? And I'm not sure if this was, the additions were shared with everyone. Okay, it was shared with everyone.
It's in the packet, too.
It's also in the packet, of course. Cliff, did you want to say anything, or Commissioner Johnson?
Sure. These were a couple of ideas that kind of branched off from what we originally saw the first time around. Tried to take a few of the tips from just some of our guests that came by as well, and just in general, thinking about what these colors could mean, and just something that pops and stands out a little bit more, and something that everybody would feel proud to wear, and hopefully the public would as well too, other than just us commissioners and such. These are things that I want people to feel like empowered. I want people to feel like they are a part. I want people to feel like there's a sign of hope. Now, this is what made me think Superman, okay? Superman symbol on his S, it's supposed to be in his world, it's a symbol for hope. And that's one of the reasons why I thought about that diamond design. Now, when it comes down to that T, truth is one of the most important things we could possibly ever have that gives out that hope. So that's our symbol, far as I'm concerned, that big T being out there. The Reconciliation Commission, I want still people to be able to understand what we are, and that's why we have the Truth Reconciliation Commission on the sides for that first one. The second one really took from basically the same symbol that our guest had when he came in. I really had him in mind when I thought about it. That's why I was asking him about the coloring and everything along those lines. And that's just, it doesn't have to exactly stick to that, but I feel like that is exactly something that is along the lines we can add to, or make multiple different versions of this as well too, something to think about. And then maybe different versions altogether that we could just get out there if we all liked all of them. I just wanted a little bit of feedback. but blue is a color of professionalism, and then the gold is something about warmth and just in general, something that stands out a little bit more in general for everyone. So just your thoughts, was wondering about, and see where we can go from there. And also, the guy who's making these, he's a great guy, and he said he can help us out with more options and shirts and everything. So just something to think about. Thoughts?
If anyone, well, first I want to say thank you so much for putting this together, Cliff, and the person who has put it together. If you don't mind sharing his name, we'd love to just give him a thanks too.
Yes, I can get all his info. I'll get all his information out for everybody right now. Yeah.
And so while you're looking for that, originally when I saw in the email, for some reason I thought these were like we would use all of them, but now I'm understanding that you are giving us 4 options. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, but I would say all of them for. I mean, just with more feedback we could add to. This is just kind of a starter pack from the last set we had. After taking a little bit of feedback, this is what we came back with. So.
I really, personally, I really like the first one. I love the Superman one you were talking about. The only thing I thought about is, should we include anything that says like City of Iowa City on it?
Oh yeah, that can go right underneath, I would say. That wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
I like the first one too. I do like the hands. I'm not a fan of how it is put together, but I do like the hands idea. I think there's just kind of like a lot going on that one. Like I like that concept, but the first one is really, it's like I noticed that too, like with the T, truth being, you know, a big part of this. So I would be willing to like go with that first one if we wanted to vote today.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
To build off what you were saying about the hands.
I think you need to talk into the microphone.
To build off what you were saying about the hands, I like that one as well. But I just got back from Boston and saw the latest Martin Luther King sculpture there with he and Coretta sort of just showing the arms. And I'm wondering if that would be a twist on that not just embracing.
I like that.
That's
Cool.
But I like the Superman idea, but I have to say that the first one, Superman jumps out first to me, which I'd rather have it in the background rather than the foreground. So, but I really like the upper right-hand one.
Awesome.
Anyone else?
I'll go with the hands. That's what I'd go with. Hands, universal. I get away from Superman idea because in my head it's going to a particular cultural group. And go back to the hands again. I'm teaching a 3-year-old who hasn't realized you shouldn't hit. And I like it when she's telling herself, don't hit, hands are not for hitting. And they know the good things that we can do with our hands versus we can do a lot of good, ourselves a lot of good, but we can also do ourselves a lot of harm using hands. So I would want to go with that and play around with the red color. Maybe, and Cliff, thank you very much for doing all the heavy lifting for us on this. I'm curious, I maybe didn't catch it about the red that is there.
Well, I was going off of our guest that came by the other day, and I thought of the same colors that he had that was going around, and I thought that I was really picking up on it. I thought it was, he said he had his own symbolism for it, and I thought we do too. We have it in multiple different ways, and those are just, like I said, those colors don't actually have to stay. I was saying when it comes down to that, the multiple versions of it, it's forever anybody. If you wanted to get a different version, you can, and everybody might feel a little differently about it. So even the one that's in the far right corner, bottom corner, that one, that came off of, well, at least it made me think of this one church that I had a friend that went to before, so that could be something that people might be attracted to. I was just thinking maybe just different versions in general that everybody, whatever you gravitate towards more, that's all. So one for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm thinking whichever we pick, it's not like it's in stone. We can keep building on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I yield.
I will say from a branding perspective, it is good to be consistent. So whatever we choose, we might want to stick with it for a little bit. So.
No, actually, I was thinking for a long, long time. I'm thinking of Go Hawks and what we have now. It's a lot of versions. So I'm thinking many years to come, not right away, not even us. Yeah.
Did you have something, Commissioner?
So that was my question, because I wanted to talk about many years away. So my assumption is that regardless of the transformation of the committee versus it being ad hoc to possibly being permanent, we're looking at this to be the type of branding structure?
I mean, that's what we're thinking right now. The reason why this came up is we, as many people know, our commission doesn't have the greatest light in the community. So we wanted to just find another way to, address or just change the view of ourselves and like give some light to what we were really here about. So creating a logo and just using that as a way as we start going out into the community finally to like start talking about who we are. So in my view, yes, I see us continuing it, but that's up to us.
The one on the bottom, the thing I find interesting is this first, I take a look at it as a shared
Which one?
crown.
Oh, okay.
The one on the bottom right, I look at it as a crown, and then I also look at it as a shield. And so for me, it symbolically says kind of who we are as communities, and our history, as well as what we are doing to, in essence, protect the best that we choose to share.
I really appreciate that. You changed my view of that one. It was my least favorite one, but no, I like the way you made that sound.
One of the reasons why I thought about the one on the top left is because of branding when it comes down to just the mindset of all of us. We like entertainment and things along those lines, and a lot of these other movies and everything like that that are coming out, they will be out for a long time, and this is also something that I feel like it's not exactly, of course, it's not exactly Superman or anything along those lines, but it is something that will always have you kind of thinking along those lines too. I actually love them all, really. I thought it was really, he did a great job with kind of mixing it up a little bit. And even that one that's on the bottom left, I like that one as well, too. But the symbolism of it, I feel like it would be, it would brand well because of a lot of other advertisements that will be coming down the line in the near future as well, too. And that's something that's been around since forever, so, or at least those movies and comic books and all that stuff. So just something that's subliminally kind of getting ahead. But I do love that, the shield / crown. I mean, that's what I was thinking. Multiple versions we could always try out. And if anybody else had any other extra ideas too, I would say the more we just get the name out there is really what's the most important. That's all. Get the name.
Well, I do believe, our chair is correct as it relates to if you're going to brand, you at least want to start with something and get everyone committed to that, and then maybe you can switch it up, but you still have that commitment to that one brand, and then that's in essence every time it sees that, it becomes a beacon of light, right? When they see this and they understand what's getting ready to happen or what they expect to happen, so you can build around it.
We also have front and back on our shirts.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
That's a very good point.
The only other thing I would say about the one on the top right, I'm not really liking the colors of the hands. If we were to stick with the hands, maybe if it was shades of brown, or I really love the arm idea that Commissioner Tassinari said. But again, I do love all of them. And the bottom left, that one looks really official to me as well. So. Does anyone feel strong enough to make a decision tonight, or do we need to talk and discuss or bring it back? I think we can bring it back if we want to, but we probably want to make a decision by the next meeting.
So this, you correct me if I'm wrong, based on where I've heard people talk to, that a lot of them were leaning towards the first one with possibly some modifications.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard, but then also, like, you brought up a good point with the bottom one. So, I mean, if that's what we want, if everyone is all for the first top left one, then we can move forward. But if anyone feels different, I'm opening it up right now.
So is it just possible that we could use the first one and then maybe we can add some modifications of adding some of the themes, like as we talked about the hands, right? It kind of uses the first one already. And then maybe on the one at the bottom right, we could somehow use the theme of the first one, but still have a concept of, kind of a crown and a shield. And then from those three, well, the hands, I think we were talking about.
The arms.
Lois, you were talking about something like.
Right. The one I was thinking of again was the Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King sculpture,
Right.
where there's no head. There's just the arms embracing, and it was quite striking. And it also reminded me of, there's an old Escher print where it's two faces, and they're becoming unwound, and they wind into each other. So, and the hands is that same sort of idea. So.
So in essence, it would be like the first one, but three different modifications of the first one, and then making the decision which one we want to go towards.
But kind of like putting those three together, but
Yeah.
like kind of coming with the best one.
So you would keep the first one as is. You would take the second one, the top right, you make the modifications, and then you take the bottom right and you make modifications. So it all feeds into having the same theme
Yes. Okay.
as the first one, and then making the decision which one moves our soul.
That sounds like a
And as
plan.
if we go with the crown, let us also be aware that there are some people who would get triggered by the crown as part of colonization. So let's remember that if we use the crown.
Do you want to just talk more about that? What are you thinking? What's coming to mind? Would there be hesitation?
I'm thinking even the Americas, when they were colonized by the British crown. So that and other colonized places. So they think of the crown. Some people, their mind goes there. And then we are doing truth-telling process. That's why I like the T there. For me, the T is standing for the truth, that we are in the process of documenting some of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so just let's keep that in mind. Crown is not necessarily a good, nice stuff for some of the people that we shall be encountering.
Thank you for keeping that in our mind.
Can we scroll down for the shirts too? Now, when I look at it, my personal opinion, I like the first one. Because in thinking about that with the crown as well, I didn't think about it like that at all before, but I feel like the first one is a lot more universal and simple. But that's just my thoughts there.
You know, I was going to say one thing. We've talked about different variations on a theme. If we thought about that Superman-esque thing as the logo, and then we could build different things off that. So it could be smaller, it could be larger, there could be things surrounding it, but that's the brand, right? It's the big T, the RC. Could be sometimes it has the name there, sometimes it doesn't. It could be over in the corner of the shirt, could be in the back. I mean, it gives us something to build off
Sleeves.
on the
I just
sleeves.
thought about this
Yeah.
like that too.
Yep.
Sleeves just like so. That would be almost like a uniform. Like, yes, I think that would be cool. I go with the first one, my personal opinion with that.
So the question is, do we want to vote on this right now, or do we want to, like Commissioner Simmons said, have some variations come back?
I'd like to go ahead and vote on the first one and see if there's consensus for the first one.
Would you like to make a motion?
So moved.
Can I do, I think
don't
you
know.
have to make.
Can I say something before we get
Yeah,
there?
of course, but
Can we sit on this and see there's 5 of us? Let me see. Whether we vote next time to
Well-
see whether there's more of us.
there's been a motion. Someone has to either second it.
I second it.
Okay, well, there's more discussion. You can choose to say, like, you can vote however you want. Is there any other discussion on this?
You also have a comment from,
Okay, we'll allow a comment from Lois Grace, a facilitator.
Hi guys, Lois Grace here. I was just wondering, this is no big deal. I didn't even realize my hand was still raised. But are the shirts going to be community distributed, or is it just for the commissioners?
The whole community is my understanding. This will be our brand and forefront.
Got it. So would it be like free for everybody, or?
I mean, we were talking about in part of our budget that we wanted to purchase shirts. I'm not sure what the process is, if we're even allowed to like raise money or fundraise, but as of right now, unless someone disagrees, we're wanting to give out shirts or items with this logo on at our many events to come.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lois Grace.
There are a number of companies online where you sort of select the T-shirt, and we would upload the logo, and then if someone wanted to purchase the shirt, they could purchase the shirt with the logo on it. So
That's a
all I'm
good
trying
point.
to say is that we could start this process by seeding it with getting a lot of shirts, and then if someone else wanted one, it wouldn't be money coming to us; it'd be going to the company, but they would still be able to get a shirt.
That's a good point.
Fundraising is a thing. That is awesome.
So there has been a motion and it's been seconded. Are we ready to vote, or is there more discussion? So, okay, I believe your motion is to approve the first one, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Do we need to clarify anything, Stephanie?
by the first one, you mean the upper left, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, we are ready to vote.
Okay, Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Krebs,
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tassinari.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-1.
Just also give information out for the person who helped out with it. He's a great guy. He's from the Daily Graphics here in Iowa, right in Canola, Iowa. They just actually opened up a new spot. His name is Jeremiah. I don't have his last name right now. I'm sorry about that, Jeremiah. But he's been a great friend of ours for a long time. Great local guy. Just so the Daily Graphics. You can find him on Instagram and I believe Facebook as well.
Okay, so it looks like you voted. I hope, although we don't all agree, we can still move forward on what our logo is going to be. You know what, we're just going to move forward on that. So,
Cliff,
what's the next step?
Is it, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is it possible for them to send me that logo
In like an
in like
illustrator.
a JPEG or something? Because we're trying to get swag for your event that's coming up. I can't promise it will be here in time, but I know the sooner I have it, the sooner that they can get something produced and ordered.
Absolutely, he's on standby. So
Okay.
he worked on things quite fast. When we were in that last meeting, talked to him a second ago. He got right back. So he's all done.
Okay, perfect. If you just send that, and I will keep trying to work on getting swag then. Thank you.
Is a JPEG sufficient, or do you need like a different file?
I think, well, I don't know the lingo that's used in the graphic design. You might, Chastity. I'm trying to think of,
I'm going to say it
What-
might be like an illustrator file or
yes,
something.
that is what we need.
He
Yes.
should be able to get everything. He is
Thank you.
pretty handy. So yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else to discuss on this, I'm going to move to public comment. If there's anyone online attending, and I believe, there is one person I believe is not a facilitator. So if you'd like to make any comment on this agenda item, now is the time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to agenda item number 6, which is talking circles. This is an agenda item, I believe, that came directly from our facilitator team. I don't know if I saw Terry online. Is it Terry? Go ahead. That one, probably, or wherever you want.
And it's also in your packets, too.
So Terry actually, unfortunately, had a funeral he had to attend, so he could not be here tonight. But Manape was going to attend, and I don't know if he is on Zoom.
I did not see his name on there.
Is it possible to skip it? Keep coming back to it? I'm just going to text him the link and just make sure.
Yeah, so we can move on, and then if he shows up later, we will return back to this agenda item. The next agenda item is commission bylaws. We talked briefly about this last week, and one of our facilitators did send some updates that they created, or like some additions that they created to it. I believe it is in this packet, right?
It's the handout, it's the separate
It's the late
handout
one, yeah.
because the city attorney's office went through it, and their comments are in red.
Okay. So these are, if everyone remembers, I brought forth our bylaws that were created at the beginning of this commission, but were never ratified and submitted to the city council. We need to go through them again and decide what we want to add or change, or how we would like to move forward with them.
I move that the bylaws with changes be accepted.
Completely, okay. I haven't had a chance, I guess I didn't realize that the city attorney had gone through to look at some of these.
They had, it's when Eduardo added comments to it that they went back, because some of the things that were added, they didn't think should be there.
Eduardo didn't think, or the city attorney?
City attorney.
Oh, okay.
So you're correct. The city attorney had looked at it before your meeting last Thursday.
Oh, they had already, okay.
But then on Saturday, Eduardo added stuff, and so then
So-
they went back and so what's in red is the things
Like the
that they would
last.
strike.
The last page.
So what's in red is what is in disagreement with
Well,
what?
it's not disagreement, they're saying it's not allowed under Iowa law.
Okay, so just so I clarify, the red is the comments from attorneys from our facilitator, Eduardo. Eduardo's comments are in blue?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I clarify my motion just to make sure?
Yes.
So what I am recommending is that
And I think you need to be a little bit closer to the mic, sorry.
what I'm recommending is that the amended document be accepted that includes the changes of the city attorney.
Okay.
So, for example, if the city attorney says this should not be included, then it is not included.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And that is a motion you're making.
It is the motion.
Is there
that I'm
any
making.
second to that motion?
I second it.
Any further discussion? I will say that since I didn't read this before, I'm a little hesitant to vote on it now, but if there's no other discussion, we can move forward. Is there any other questions or thoughts? It looks like everyone's still reading through it.
I think if you haven't read those.
Yeah, and the only changes, well,
I mean,
are the changes in blue and then the comments in red. The rest of the document would be the one you saw last week.
Okay. Are we ready to move forward with the vote? Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
Commissioner Dillard,
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Gathawa.
Abstain.
Are you abstaining because you,
Because I am thinking we should discuss what changes now with this change.
okay, so I
Yeah.
think you can just both vote no then.
What'd you say?
I said I think if you're, the vote, you could just say no
Okay, I'm saying
instead of
no.
abstaining, yeah.
So do I need to change my vote, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because abstaining is usually if you have a conflict of interest. If you don't agree with the motion, then it's a no vote.
Okay, I changed my vote to no.
Thank you. Commissioner Gathawa?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
Vote no.
No. Okay. Commissioner Krabs?
I feel like the commissioners would like to have some more time to go over this, and due to the importance of it, I want to back them on that, so I will vote no.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
And Commissioner Tassinari?
Yes.
Okay, the vote fails. There were 2 yeas and 4 nays. So I will place this back on the agenda for September 7th.
Thank you. Are there any further, did someone raise their hand? Oh, I see on. Is there any further discussion on this agenda item? If not, I'm going to return back to agenda item number 6, which is talking circles. Yes. And welcome Manape to begin that discussion. Okay. Hello.
You guys hear me?
We can now.
Yes.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Evening.
Hey, Manape.
I think I had accepted as being a panelist and going to kind of cut me off a little bit. Could you tell me what you would like from me in regards to our talking circles?
Well, I think V is going to give us some clarifying information right now.
Okay.
Yeah, V Fix My Rise, SDG planning. Manape, I think we're just going to go over the healing circles, the talking circles that T and you had talked about, that's in the packet. It really just kind of goes through some of the expected outcomes of the talking circle, the purpose, who it's really targeted towards, and what it requires, and then kind of that activity. I know you all had kind of spoken about this item earlier, and so I don't know how much you wanted to dig into it. I'm not sure if commissioners have questions about it, the purpose of the talking circles, how you would imagine that being implemented in terms of going into working with community members. I will say, and Manape, you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the idea was that these healing circles were going to be it's kind of a train the trainer session, right? So, hopefully you all will kind of volunteer to do that. We're also going to reach out to some folks that are already doing talking circles in the community. In our school districts, a lot of folks are doing them. And in mediation services in general, these are happening. So this is an opportunity for people to kind of experience this type of circle so that we can kind of continue to use it as a healing method. And so I think that's kind of what we wanted to present. And there's just more detail in here than I think you've seen before. So I don't know if you want to speak to any of the details in there, and then if folks have questions.
Yeah, Yeah, there's a couple things. Hello, everybody. My name is Manape Lemire. I'm in Sioux City. I'm a Dakota, and I am a Ho-Chunk. And I've been doing talking circles for about 18 years now. And I've done them in prison. I've done them outside of prison. I've done them in prison during my own incarceration, not necessarily as service work to incarcerated individuals, but I have benefited from these things both in my own recovery, in my sobriety, and in my recovery of my own sanity, and in the recovery of my own self. So I've been doing this for quite some time, and Terry was also an elder. He's also been doing some things like this for about 20 years as well. And then I'm not sure what Danielle's history is with these things. I know she's had a history with them as well too, but I can't speak for her. Now, what Terry has put together and as just like a kind of a draft mock-up of how this goes is just something visual for people to kind of look over. There's a couple things in there that I would just be cautious of. As an indigenous person, I certainly smudge, or if you're not familiar with what that is when we burn certain plant materials, or usually it's stuff that comes from plants, like even frankincense and myrrh and things like that. In religious settings, those are tree saps that are burned, and we do the same thing, but maybe different material. And I'm just a little cautious with that, because some of that stuff can be a bit cultural appropriation, and I believe that we're throwing that in there because it's important to clear out the space. And sometimes we may have teachings that whether you're Indian or African or Asian, even European, they had forms of clearing the space using smudge. So that word smudge, it's kind of pan-Indian, but I think it can cover a lot of cultures. But at the same time, I'm just cautious. I don't want to create no cultural appropriation either. So that little piece of smudging could be something that's not done at all. It could be something that is agreed upon by the circle, and there was a use of the word religion in that type of that you see. I would or not religion, the word prayer. At the end, there is, I try to be very careful when I use the word prayer. Again, we come into these spaces, this isn't a space to advocate for one's religion. So when it comes to a closing invocation, or what Terry used as the word prayer, I think whoever has the honor of doing that should be agreed upon before the start of the meeting, and to be always mindful that we're not here to advocate for a particular religion, and that we want to create a space of complete respect for how anybody offers up those words. And so notice I didn't say the word prayer. I'm just trying to be very careful. And those two things in my history, I'd say most people would say, oh, it's not a problem. But if there ever was a time where these things kind of get a little funny. I would say it would revolve around smudging, and I would say it would revolve around the closing invocation. And so with those two things, I think with Terry and myself and Danielle, as we move into demonstrating these talking circles in the next month, we will also be taking the temperature of the community to see if that's something that they want to maintain, because then we would have to move into training the trainer, so to speak, like what V had said. And we want to even streamline it even more than what you see in there. There's some wording that is very particularly Native American wording in some of that. You know, like he mentions using an eagle feather. Of course, we would offer to utilize something else, but it's just an example of the archetype that this thing that we pass is symbolic of incredible power, and these things can carry the weight of great sorrow and mourning. These things can also be a centerpiece to our focus and our energy. And so with that, there is opportunity for somebody to, an example is, you guys just voted on something, and some of you voted yes, and some of you voted no. And, you know, sometimes we can take a vote personal and say, well, what the hell's their problem? Why didn't they vote this way? And, you know, there's a lot of things that go into this vote or that vote. And these spaces are opportunities for us to help to try to understand one another. Maybe because somebody is in mourning, maybe the particular situation has directly affected them. There could be a lot of reasons as to why this person voted this way or that way. And we're not setting out to explain ourselves, but we do want to provide opportunities for people to come to a natural understanding of where somebody's coming from and why they may be the way they are right now in their life and voting the way they are voting. I think that quite often in life we're provided these opportunities, but maybe sometimes our own feelings can cause us not to see or understand that. So these spaces, these talking circles, if you were somebody who was very anti-police and you were sitting across from the chief of police, maybe there's an understanding in there somewhere, you know, and that's what we want to provide. We want to provide a space, a safe space for all of us to have that opportunity. Now, again, back to wording, there are some things in there like eagle feather and prayer and such that, you know, I think in the final draft, we might remove some of those things, and we might be requesting a very particular item. Maybe it's a stick. Maybe it's made of something that has particular meaning to us in Iowa City. This is not an Indian talking circle. This is Iowa City's talking circle. This can help mitigate differences between elders. This could help mitigate differences between youth and the situations that they might find themselves in, and people in that middle road of life, you know, that adulthood as well. and I think that we might be deciding on what those things are after a couple trainings in September. Not trainings, presentations on how these actually go. And then I think with the feedback from those moments in September, we could get a definitive yes or no if this is something that we feel comfortable with continuing. Because that would also mean that there might be at least a couple people that would say, you know what, teach me how you do this. Teach me how you do it, and I'll advocate for this. When there's an issue, this person would step up, and they could even call on us for help. And one of us would probably be able to show up and help facilitate that. So, if there's any other questions, I'm gonna kind of stay on for a bit, and I know that we're on this topic now, but I'm gonna sum that up and kind of open it up to you guys if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I just want to clarify, Manape, this is Marie. So from what I understand, these are the talking circles that you guys would, this is your outline of how you would perform the talking circles. I would definitely not feel comfortable having this exact outline done unless it was done by a specific person. So are you guys like open to feedback of maybe what would be a good passing object? What we would kind of consider like the Iowa City sacred object, or how we could maybe kind of ground people, or different options that we could use that wouldn't be, like burning, like sage, for example. Those are my questions.
Yeah, thank you. Those are great questions. And yeah, I in other talking circles in other communities, the smudging piece kind of, there's always some folks that are very familiar with that. And then there's other folks that are a little bit more like, what is this? What are we doing? I've never done this before, and then that is a part of, I've seen it where in some spaces, somebody that is facilitating that may not necessarily feel that smudging is important. I've also seen in the exact same meetings with the exact same community where maybe the next facilitator feels that is important. And so I've seen communities say, okay, well, this week I don't mind not smudging, and then the next week, whoever the facilitator is, they prefer that. That's fine too. There is wonderful opportunities to mitigate that, but at the same time, where is this being done? If you're doing this in a high school that where I live, we might get away with that. We might be able to have a meeting and say, hey, look, we're going to smudge. Well, in some places in Iowa, they ain't never heard or seen nothing like that before. So that would be an issue that I wouldn't want to drum up, excuse the pun, but I wouldn't want to make it an issue because we'd be wasting some time. I feel like sometimes other issues are more important than me smudging right now, So I definitely get and have experience in that exact dynamic that you're talking about.
So just to clarify,
yeah.
I just want to clarify,
Okay.
I am concerned about the cultural appropriation portion also because of the talking circles not being done by an Indigenous person. I don't know how I'd feel about someone coming in with sacred objects and smudging. So.
Yeah. Again, I mean, there's more than just Indigenous people that smudge. But at the same time, I feel like that's something that I'm willing to cut out And I think that Terry compiled this draft. This is just like the draft of how this would go. So some folks can kind of visualize it, read it, you know. And that could be something that we cut out. We don't smudge at all, you know. There is a part in there where Terry includes the lighting of a candle. And I've been in talking circles where there is no candle. There isn't one at all, you know. So I love how Terry put this together to kind of help guide folks into we have the opportunity to create what we want. And I think that Terry is presenting you a very indigenous format. And I think that we could even streamline some of that to where it wouldn't offend anybody at all, you know, and it would be and we can still incorporate the power of understanding and relationship building. I think we could cut some of those things out and still preserve that relationship building piece.
If I could add to, you know, my understanding is exactly kind of what Manape is really talking about, the co-creation of it all. So all of this feedback is, you know, I mean, if at some point there's lots of things you could burn, and maybe people come to the understanding that burning something grounds a space so you can, like, you know, burn a corn stalk or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever's going to be Iowa City based. You know, we could agree upon that, and it's, you know, the stick could have some symbolism around that. So I think that there is a lot of room here.
That's why I just wanted to make sure this is like a template. Totally. We can move things around, and we're not. I just wanted to make sure this isn't like what we're going to roll out and teach people.
No.
That makes sense.
No,
Thanks to both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that probably what would be good too, because I know, and I certainly ask more questions, I just also want to make sure that we walk away with when this is going to happen, because it's already end of August, and we're going to be doing strategic doing. We're going to talk about this in a minute in terms of the fact-finding dates, and that's, you know, proposed also end of September. We have the month of October, and then we need to present. So I'm always kind of mindful of that too. And also, you know, Manape and Terry and Danielle want to be mindful of your, you know, trips or work or whatever is going on. So if you have a sense, and I don't know if you've talked with Terry or Danielle about when is a good window even for commissioners to look at their schedules.
Yeah. Yes, I had a discussion with them, and my understanding, they're kind of leaving it up to me to let them know. So my understanding is September we would come a couple different times and do some talking circles with the community, with TRC, with the community. We would facilitate that. And we wanted to say two times because, you know, the first time I ever tasted bell peppers, I didn't like them. Then the second time I had them, I was like, hey, these ain't so bad. You know, so we want people to be able to kind of process stuff. And sometimes the first time, maybe in new spaces, folks might just listen. You know, a lot of us just listen. Like, we're not coming to this space to share anything. I'm just listening and taking in what's going on. But the thing about talking circles and healing spaces is participation. And so we want to provide a second one to allow people that need that understanding of how this goes, and then maybe the second one, an opportunity for them to participate more fully. After that second one, let's say the first one is September 15th. And then the second one is September 30th. You know, I think very quickly, like within a day or two, we should have some feedback on whether that's something that folks feel would be beneficial to the community. They might experience it and they might say, nah, you know what? I can do this. I don't need it. We don't know. We don't really know yet. But I think that the community is going to have positive feedback with this. I think there's going to be individuals that will say, I like it, I want to do it, but I ain't facilitating it. That's where we need to find, I think after that second meeting, we would need to find, we want to also demonstrate how simple that can be. And it does take a little bit of leadership skills to create a safe space, create a neutral environment where people can, I don't want to say express whatever they want. There is a boundary, right? But at the same time, we want to extend that liberty of expression as well. So there is a bit of tact and diplomacy in that position as a facilitator. And maybe not everybody's up for that. So I think we'll find out within a few days after that second one of people that will say, you know what, I think the Creator's calling me to do this. I'll do it. I'll definitely do this, you know. And then if that is the case, then we will do 2 weeks of training in that. We can come and go over and fine tune the draft that we've sent you. We want to fine tune that draft a little bit, and that can be a template for us training a facilitator. And then from there on, that facilitator will have the liberty of training and molding and adapting how these talking circles go in the future. Once it's in Iowa City's possession, Iowa City's going to create this, and once you have it, you can go. You can go with it. And that's my understanding. So that timeline kind of takes us into Halloween. I would even say the middle of October. If we're super efficient about this, I'd say that we could wrap this up where you would have your package of assisting people. I think we can. I think we can do this before the end of October.
That seems really ambitious.
That sounds good to me.
So to give it a little bit of...
You know what? It does sound really ambitious. I would just say that I think we've done this long enough, and trust in the process and trusting people's spirit that this can be done. And I mean, I've seen it where, you know what, if inmates can create something within 2 weeks in a prison, we can do it out here.
Absolutely.
We can.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've seen it done, where we've had to create instantaneous talking circles, or we're going to go crazy, and there's going to be some serious problems in here. I think we're already there in this community, in any of these communities, let alone a institution like a prison, a men's prison.
I agree.
I feel ambitious. Yes, it is a bit ambitious, but that's because I believe in everybody too, and I know this can be done.
I like your energy. There it is.
So to give some context of the weeks, September 14th and 16th is strategic doing, and then Larry, who had to jump off, was hoping that September 27th through the 28th they could come and do some fact finding. So that's not to say we can't do it all, right? But that would be, to Manape's point about kind of like coming in a couple times. I don't know if that's the week of the 18th or something like that. And then the 2 weeks of training, like you said, happening maybe like early October.
So
Yeah.
my question is that's a lot going on in the month of September. We're looking to encourage the community to join us with this. So that doesn't necessarily mean that each commissioner needs to be at each training or circle or whatever we decide is necessary. Is that how you see it?
I mean, I think kind of to what Manape was saying, this work is not light work. And so for those that, under the exploratory couple meetings, feel called to it, I think that'll probably sort it out itself, truly. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he mentioned this, but Manape actually did come and do a talking circle with commissioners last year. I don't know, 2 years. I don't know. It
was last year.
Yeah, it was last year, last fall, right? And so there's been a little bit of experience amongst the commission with those circles. And so you kind of have a little taste, is all I'm saying, for some folks. And maybe in other spaces as well, you've had that experience, so.
Yeah, I want to interject when we are talking of...
Do you want to use your microphone?
When you're talking of training, when Manape came and held a couple of circles, it's very different from what is here already, because I've had the privilege of being in both. And so my fear is a lot is lost in translation. So if one has never been in the indigenous circle, then you get to the real thing. It's so, and it's such a, I mean, I don't know, how long has it taken you, Manape, to be where you are to run a circle? Mm-hmm. Don't answer. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I wish we could just keep the indigenous facilitators just doing it, just so that there is no, that a lot isn't lost. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say in too many words.
I would agree. That was one of my questions on Manape. You answered it. It was like, I mean, it's taken you, I think you did say 18 years to get to where you are, and we're wanting to train people in 2 weeks. It is, as Commissioner Gathwa says, there's going to be a disconnect there. But I do believe it's important that we do train our community so we can do it on our own. Just we might need to figure out how to connect that a little bit longer.
Yeah, and there are, as Commissioner Gathwa pointed out, there are practitioners in our community already, and so it might be more of a fine-tuning. I know and this isn't, I know what you're saying, because I've experienced
and those are the
it.
ones that I've experienced,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It's just different. I mean, what I was going to say was it doesn't provide the connection that I know.
The spiritual
Yeah,
part.
It doesn't provide that, but at least there's a template so that we don't get the appropriation. I think that was a real concern moving forward. And so it's not perfect. It's not going to get somebody with 18 years coming in, but maybe in 18 years.
Actually, some of them, the ones that we have around, have actually done harm, and they have been dealt with. So I'm fearing all those things. Yeah.
I think it's,
yeah. So
that's legitimate. Again, hopefully we can, kind of address the appropriation head on, and that may just be the biggest one in some ways. But I agree. I mean, I completely experienced that myself.
I did have another question. I think, again, Manape, you did address it, but I am a little concerned we will run into people that really want no religious connection to anything. I know that one of the things in here says provide spiritual empowerment coaching, or just talking about how, I know V, you just said that the difference might be that there's a spiritual connection, and that I believe in this community could be met with some resistance. And it's also depending on the culture, because I will say from my own background, it might not be, but in the same sense, someone else might feel differently. So how would you modify that? How would you make it so that people who they're not Indigenous, but are part of the marginalized communities would be able to relate and want to participate?
Well, not to speak for Monape, but I think a way we can tailor this without cultural appropriation, I'm pretty sure there's probably like some therapeutic ways that they use to kind of release tension out of bodies, and maybe we can kind of go that route.
Absolutely.
Possibly.
I agree with that. I feel like spiritual doesn't necessarily have to be religious. Spiritual is nature. Nature is everybody. We're all a part of this earth, period. And humanity is also another thing that we need to kind of go back to embracing a little bit more. We have differences, but at the same time, we all have bonds. And that's the spiritual, I think. That's what I think of, because I'm not religious. I am not religious at all. However, I did enjoy the times that I did step into those circles. And I mean, it was a little heated, and things do get there, but we're also dealing with a lot of truth, and truth is emotional, and truth will get heated.
Right.
But I feel like it was handled well, especially as someone who was experienced with those 18 years. I feel like that knowledge that he can give, to just give the template, I think it's perfect, and I love it. So that's my personal opinion.
I think finding like if we get really lucky and find the person, because I think it takes a particular person also to manage these sort of spaces. I think that's important. Some people are not going to be able to be trained in something like this, even if they love it with all their heart and want to do it. They're just not the person, right? So if we can find like specific people who kind of have that in their, in their spirit, that's what comes to me. They're going to be easier to train because they're natural at it. So I think it's just going to kind of depend too on who we find to facilitate.
Yeah, I think that there's some very fundamental teachings that we would offer to these facilitators. One is that there is a circle. There is a circular space. This isn't just get up from your chair and just head out. This is creating a circular space that has a door, and you go in and you flow out. This isn't well, I'm just going to get up and go take a piss. No matter what, you have to be mindful of the circle and where you're at in it in order to leave the space. And so what that does is like it puts us in a hoop. And very fundamentally, Indigenous people have an understanding of a hoop. There was a time in my life I didn't know a dang thing about no hoops. I didn't care about no hoops, And somewhere I get thrown into these talking circles, and I gain an understanding of this circle that I'm in, and how things flow, and having new respect for the person that was doing the talking circles when I first started, right? And very quickly I picked up on these things. Very quickly I found where I shouldn't be and where I should be, and when to speak up and when to shut the hell up. Very quickly I figured out when is it appropriate to share and when it's not. And the circle itself kind of somehow it does this. We don't know how, and even when that second night that I had talking circle, somebody showed up and was sitting there early, And she said, yeah, I want to be the first one to share. Well, joke's on you. I'm going to send it around the other way. This is my circle. I'm facilitating this. You don't come in and you don't tell me how this is going to go. You know, there's a certain respect, right? And so I didn't go into great detail about that with this person, but I just did it, you know, and things didn't go the way that they wanted it to go. They were prepared for it to go a very particular way. And so to demonstrate that respect and a lesson in the lack of control we have in our lives, I sent it around a different direction. So anyways, I think that we can streamline this down to extremely fundamental teachings about hoops, about circles, about how these things flow. And one of the first things that I talked about when we were in there was how quite often we're staring at square screens. We're living in square lodges. We're sitting at square tables. Even our chairs have square bottoms on them, and we're sitting in a square. I'm looking at your guys' desks right now, and they're in a U shape. It's almost a circle. You want to be in a circle. You're almost there. And so these meetings, these talking circles, very dramatically make it that thing that we're yearning for so bad, you know. So I really think that we can streamline this down to some fundamentals, and I know that we would want the full indigenous package, but I think that we trust these circles, and we have to trust, whether you're of European descent, African descent, whatever, that when you get into these circles, you're gonna call on some very human being pieces of yourself in this space, and I would trust that. I would trust that, because you know what? We're all indigenous to somewhere, and the Indian people don't own the term indigenous. We are only helping lead the way to these natural spaces. That's all. And I would have to trust, if there is an African facilitator, well, let's do it African way. Smudge with some African stuff. If I don't like it, I'll leave. I'll leave the circle. I don't want people to leave, but at the same time, I have to be able to respect other people's circles and how I enter them. And then also, I feel like this is not going to be a space for religion. And when I say religion, that is the Latin term re-lingua, which is to say it with your tongue again, to recite. We are not reciting the Quran. We are not reciting the Bible. We are not reciting the Torah. We are not reading and reciting anything. Everything is going to come from our heart and our circulatory system, that circle, from our heart and our blood, and all the wonderful things that happen because of that. So I think that with the little template that we're going to put together, we are going to call on some extreme fundamentals of, like, any culture on earth will have these very fundamental things. So that's all I'll share. Thank you.
Thank you again.
So in terms of dates, sorry to be that person, but I do want to give people a heads up. I do want to make sure we get invites out to folks who are already doing circles, and if you all want to be a part of the exploration of what this looks like, I think it would be good to put on some dates, if that's okay. As a facilitator, I'm facilitating that part of the conversation.
And we want to do this in September also, right?
Agreed, yeah. So it looks like, I had my calendar.
So if we're doing this and it's talking circles, we want them to be sacred, we probably won't have quorum, right? that would be, and how many people in a circle?
So I think that the training is probably a little bit different.
Okay, so this is the training, it's not the experience.
Correct. So
Okay.
I think that what I just heard, and Manape maybe, I think was saying was they're going to come 2 times to explore the co-creation of what it's going to be, and then spend 2 weeks doing the thing to then create those circles, which would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of what you're looking at, is those 2 initial dates at the very least in September. And I was trying to put that in the context of strategic doing is happening the 14th and the 16th. And then Larry wanted to ask if they could do the fact finding with you all the 27th and 28th. And so, you know, I'm not sure if, you know, one thing I'm always trying to think of, and Manape, you can kind of clarify for me for who you were thinking could be there. But if you try and offer 2 different times on 2 different, like you do night, this is why we're doing strategic doing at night one time and then during the day on a weekend, just trying to, you know, be more available to folks. If that's possible, I think having those 2 dates be at different times.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So if you look at.
I like that idea.
Yeah, please. Oh, great. I'm glad you do. Maybe the week of the 18th?
Could we do like so for like the TRC meeting on the 21st, instead of doing like what our normal meeting would be, could we convert that to one of the things that we need to do with the facilitators or with the circles?
What time, how much time do we need for this one?
Manape, for your 2 training times that you're coming, how long, or sorry, the 2 exploratory co-creation parts that you were talking about, those first 2 meetings, how long do you think those would be?
I would give people 2-hour sessions, depending on the amount of people that are there. But I would say 2 hours is the general time frame.
Okay.
So we could do the 21st. The following week for the fact-finding one is not a scheduled meeting, so.
Correct. That's a Wednesday and Thursday, the 27th and 28th. And that is a question. That was a request from Kearns and West, which I don't think any of them are on. I know Larry had to jump off, so he texted me.
Yeah, we should solidify this first one and then move on to that one. But
Yeah,
Just wanted to let you know that was in the
thank you,
mix.
though.
Yeah.
would the 21st work?
We can put that as our agenda item if we want. So yes. If we have any other, would it be, we want that to be a training like we did the first week of August? Or would it be part of our TRC meeting and we can have other agenda items, if that makes sense?
2 hours would be 7 to 9.
Let's do the training. I mean, I feel like we're doing
Just
the
do the
work
training,
now.
okay.
So let's just roll out and get this training on that particular day.
Unless you wanted to meet earlier, like you did for the training, and then have time for your meeting.
I know that doesn't work for everyone, so
I just wanted to, it was an idea.
thank you for that. So Stephanie will do the training on the 21st. Thank you. Do we need anything for that?
Oh. No, it doesn't look like it. I don't think so.
And that is, so that if we're all there, that is an open forum meeting. We're inviting people from the public, not like the first week where they were sitting in the crowd, they're joining us in the discussion.
That's my understanding, yeah. And I think that we would also do invites out to those that are already doing talking circles in the school district and beyond,
Okay.
too. So making sure we're getting some practitioners and, you know, maybe some curious community members.
And can the facilitators and I guess Stephanie help us put those invitations out to who you already know is out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Can we incorporate more?
Generally, when those circles are going to be happening, they're going to be fairly consistent, and the community would want something consistent with, like, let's say if there was facilitators that could offer it, you'd want to offer that space at least once a week. So the option, I feel, is do we want to do this back to back, 1 week during the evening and then 1 week later on the same day during the day? Or do we want to give that time, 2 weeks in between? Now, this isn't necessarily, it would just be for the experience of that consistency.
Yeah, I think part of that, if I'm understanding correctly, is that when you say consistency, it's like you don't want people to forget also, right? Like everything that had just been done. Sorry, you're muted.
We can't hear you.
That makes sense.
Sorry, say that again.
Is that consistency along the lines of you don't want too much time to go between the two because you don't want people to forget what was done and said? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I don't think people would really forget. It's just, it may feel like a long time to get there.
Muscle memory, kind of.
Yeah. If somebody feels something a couple days, sometimes there's a lot of processing that happens. Even when you don't think about it so much, you can very suddenly find yourself having a very important point that you'd want to contribute into that circle. And that might happen, 3-4 days later, and it's like, I got something to share here in a couple days. And I'd say just for the experience of a week to week, you might want to consider doing the first session 1 week, and then 1 week later you do the second, as opposed to, I guess I'm just throwing out some options of timing.
I completely agree. I was actually going to say something along the lines of you did the 21st at night, maybe the 30th, which is a Saturday, you could do during the day or something like that. Again, to try and just make it available for maybe people that work nights or maybe just couldn't make that evening time. I don't know if that would work for you all to come in on a Saturday. But that's just a suggestion.
That'd be better than coming in on a Monday. I know that.
The 30th would work really well.
So are we talking about the 21st and the 30th? Okay.
That works for me.
So time-wise, we've got 7 to 9 p.m. on the 21st, and then the 30th, I want to be mindful of people's bodies and minds. I don't know if it's like 10 to noon.
I think that's a good time frame because it's not too early. You can sleep in a little bit if you want to, but we're not taking up the whole day. You're still getting out at noon and can do family stuff or whatever you like to do.
And just so I understand, the goal is to get the same group of people at both.
I think, yes, and then if there are new people joining, I think that's okay too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it sound like we have a plan? In agreement? Okay.
Great, because when we put out the invites, it'd be nice to have both dates.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, since we're already talking about dates, can we just, okay. So I'm just going to move on to agenda item number 9, selection of dates for facilitation and fact-finding. And so, V, do you want to give us another?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody.
Thank you, Manape.
It was fun riding around Sioux City with you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys and gals.
A minute since I was there in 2011. Yeah, so it's good just to take the tour with you.
And Laurel Cohen is from Kearns and West. So Laura, I don't want to, speak for her. I had just gotten a text message from Larry, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk.
Yeah, I appreciated the message. I would just be underscoring what Larry said. So we were hoping for either the 20th 21st or the 27th, 28th kind of time. So if the first one's planned, it would be great if we could talk about the second option.
So the 27th and the 28th is what you're looking for?
Yes, ma'am.
What are the times that you are proposing?
Where we had gotten was just talking about general openness to that time period as it relates to the other things happening in the month, like strategic doing and the talking circle co-creation. So I think that the hope was we could find out what the commissioner's availability looked like for that period, and then sort of ask you what time would be most convenient, and then try to build it around that.
What amount of time were you thinking would be needed for the training?
I think that we were thinking either 2 2-hour blocks or 1 4-hour block, just to get the conversation going, and then, if possible, bring some initial materials before we leave town, just to see if we're on the right track, and then we'll set up the two-way channels for feedback, and then finding data, getting feedback, and et cetera.
I would prefer a 1 day, 4-hour day. That's just me.
So Thursdays I have class until 6:45.
Okay.
So it's really cramping all of my style for the Thursday training.
Gotta get that education.
We don't have to do Thursdays. We could do another day, but
I could do a 4-hour
Wednesday. Yeah, 27th is a Wednesday.
we could do that Wednesday, but I can also do 2 hours if people want to do that as well. Just,
Either one's fine with me.
I know that it's hard for some people with businesses, but what is everyone's thoughts?
I'm trying to make it work, so give me the time. I'll try to make it work.
Do you have any preference, Cliff? I know that, like you said, it's...
I'll go for the 4-hour. I don't care, 2-hour. I'm very open. I'll make
Would
it work.
Wednesday work for you for a 4-hour?
That's fine.
Maybe we could
What
just roll
time?
out that Wednesday 4-hour and call it a day if it works for everybody.
What time is it till when? Or
5 to 9.
Yeah, probably be the same.
A 5 to 9? Okay.
Does that work for you, Guy?
Yeah, I'm usually flexible. When I'm quiet is because it will work. If it doesn't work, I talk. Yeah, so
like it.
yeah, I'm able to flex. I'm lucky that way.
Awesome.
I'm able to flex.
Okay, I just...
27th, 5 to 9?
I want to say I appreciate everyone taking time in September because it's going to be a packed month.
Yes.
So does that work for you, Laurel?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for talking through it, and I'll let Larry know right now.
Great.
Now, do we need to plan like a dinner for this?
Hold on.
And all that?
27th, from what time to time?
We said 5 to 9.
Okay, 5 to 9. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get accommodations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we have all the dates set for September.
Blow me over with a
Great.
whisper. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Great. So don't forget to keep Redmond and the council apprised on this so they don't, you know.
We will make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, we'll get that worked out. Thank you.
Since we're speaking of dates, were there October dates that we needed to decide right now?
Not at this moment. I think that probably what we'll come back next meeting and have a better sense of October. I think we're also trying to work through September. So, but it is one of our items that we're discussing as a
Okay.
team. So yeah, we'll get that to you as soon as possible.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I will say, I think everybody's aware that, I don't know why I'm moving this on. Everybody's aware of the end of October kind of presentation deadline, so we are trying to get everything in. I think the schedule that we have so far, we are really rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Or at least we're getting things planned ahead, so that's good.
Who is the presentation to?
The presentation
Who is it to?
to City Council. It's a kind of check-in presentation that sort of documents what we've done and where we think we're headed. It was designed to be kind of a pause to really reflect on all that we've kind of learned together. And do we need to pivot? Do we need to change things? What suggestions do we have? And kind of as we go into the last 4 months of this contract for final recommendations. So that'll be a presentation that we work on with you all. So yeah, that's a great question.
And then who's sending the letters out? Are we going to like break that up or?
For the invitations for all the workshops?
Yeah, because I saw the letters were put together. Now we should add like all the dates, and then we're going to send that to our compiled list, correct?
So yes, that letter specifically, that draft letter was for strategic doing. But I think it could be modified for anything else that you wanted to do. I can talk a little bit more about that if you want to go into the...
Yes, so I'll move on into the next one, strategic doing workshops.
Thank you. So just to kind of talk a little bit about the strategic doing and just really working closely with Stephanie and Redmond on getting making sure that we're getting all the kind of ducks in a row. There are some options. So we were trying to put together that list of people and organizations. We haven't heard from hardly anybody about filling that out, unfortunately. And so I just kind of plead you to add some names, email them to Stephanie, so we can get that filled out.
Okay, I think I'm sorry, I was confused. So I thought we had like the list and we were going to like send it to the list that we had, but I'm missing something, aren't I?
So last time we said that we had a list that we had created of just organizations, but we needed to narrow it down by names of actual contacts. So we all, and I failed at this too, we're going to send those names to Stephanie by this past Monday to add to that list. It's been a busy week. It's okay.
It's okay.
I was working on it today, and I think we can try to send more.
Yeah, now that we have that clarity. And I think it's another way to do this would be to, there's a couple ways to do this. So one way is that you have the draft letter and you send it to your contacts. Another way is for you to send it all to Stephanie, and then she sends it. So that is kind of something that we need to know, because the way that the draft email is written is as though you are sending it.
I think it would be great for Stephanie and city staff to send out a bulk of the information. If anyone feels strongly that they have a personal connection, they do it personal. But
so you could use that draft email to do that, and
opinion.
then potentially another option would be if there was just a letter signed by Chair Dillard that Stephanie would send out. That's just an invitation.
That's an option too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to do that balance of making it somewhat personalized. You don't want it to be a spam email. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just some personability.
So I can go through the list tomorrow.
Yeah.
And try to find like actual contact names for the organizations and get those to Stephanie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I can work on that tomorrow, and I will try to work on it in the morning to get it to you.
And just to be clear, I need contact names and email addresses.
Okay.
And then we would just send out a bulk blind copy email. So we're not going to send out 260, personal emails. It would just be a blind copy.
Yeah, which might be why something coming from Chair as the representative of the TRC.
Right, but there maybe also it could be the bulk goes out, and then there could be a follow-up from the individuals who want to make
absolutely.
the personal contact.
Yeah, 100%.
I was just exactly.
Yeah. It's an all and because you're asking people to attend an event. You're probably gonna have to email again in a week. Right. So
yeah, I think that's a great idea. We do that bulk. Hopefully, it's a huge amount, and then at our September 7th meeting, we make sure everyone knows who they're going to divvy up and just follow up. Hopefully we have some RSVPs by then.
Yeah, that's great. I think we were trying to get it out by tomorrow, but I don't know, Monday is probably not much difference. I don't know what you think, Stephanie.
Do you already have people on the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So it was the translations for tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because another thing that we wanted to circle back on, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Simmons, I think you maybe had a comment.
I do.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stop your flow.
No, go ahead. I'm kind of going to segue into something else.
So there are some things I'd like to talk to you about, but I don't necessarily believe I have to discuss it during a committee meeting. But there are some things that I'm still a little bit confused about.
Sure.
I'm confused about, so I have a list of 5 people that I want to invite. They're not on the list. I don't think that people would think about them, and that's fine. But I'm struggling with who's in the room. Mm-hmm. The one thing that you talked about, again, and I did some further research, is that the people in the room are those who can, in essence, make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure that there are people in the room that have that ability. I believe in many nonprofits, but most nonprofits can't make things happen. They're looking for things to happen to them so that they can then achieve their mission. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is that, again, based on conversation, we said we wanted around 30 people approximately in the room. Mm-hmm. And so in the 30 people that we approximately want in the room, what is the characteristics of those individuals that are in the room that will then make a decision about the projects that we'll be doing?
I think fundamentally you want people in the room that believe in what this commission is trying to do. Because I think that in terms of what people bring, what we call assets, unfortunately, I hate to kind of boil people down to their assets, but that's what strategic doing is focused on. But those assets can be like musical talent, can be, and things that aren't actually monetized in some ways. I think people get confused when we talk about assets. But you want people that are willing to come and they believe in what you're trying to do. They ideas people, but they also do. And so I understand what you're saying about nonprofits. I don't necessarily think, that's why there's many different columns there. There's community leaders, there's people that work in the hospital, there's all kinds of folks. So I think in terms of the characteristics, you fundamentally want people that believe in what the commission is trying to do and want to do something to help.
So if I would just kind of give you an example, that there are those people that want to do, but they may not want to do things that are still allowing us to move our mission forward.
Right.
If we were to have a group that focused on doing things around hair care and hair design, then maybe, maybe Lewis and Clifton and myself are not the ones that are going to do that because we're more aerodynamic than most people. It has nothing to do with our passion with the work, right? But it may have something to do with, are we the right people in the room to be able to get that specific work done? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that I think that the chair has brought up that there has been some issues around people who are questioning the work that we're doing and whether the work that we're doing is of value to them. And then the last thing I brought up to you was that one of the things that the unintended consequence is that when a council chooses, the city council chooses to give some work to a commission, then in that sense they say, community commission, you all figure it out and then come to us back with recommendations. And I am in a process, I will say, going through, starting with, I think the first video I can see that is sometime around May of 2021, and I'm going to work my way through to better understand versus just what I've heard, better understand what's there. But I'm still questioning if the people that I want to bring are quality people. I question, and there are people that are doers, but I don't know if they're the right people in the room to be able to get us closer to what we want to ultimately achieve. And so that's why I'm asking specifically is that if all of us brought in 5 people, right, and then 9 of us, that's 45 people. what is it, what do we need to look at, not so much from the characteristics of their commitment to doing things, but more so from the perspective of what is it the thing that we want them to help us do that we, for example, ourselves would not would not be able to do by ourselves, or we feel that they could do better for us.
So, I mean, I think maybe one thing that is missing from this conversation, and it's a part of the strategic doing that I've talked about, is creating the aspirational statement. Another way of looking at that is, and I'm blanking on the term, it is a question. Looking at, thank you, Marlene. Marlene Mendoza is actually online, as is, I guess maybe, Marlene, actually, if you could join for a second, if that's okay. I've asked Marlene Mendoza, who I've talked about from Mendoza Consulting, to join us. She was the one that I had kind of approached about doing an all-Spanish version of this. But Marlene, can you remind me what it's called?
Yes, it's a framing question.
Framing question, thank you. A framing question. So I think that what we're missing from the conversation is this framing question and or an aspirational statement, because that is how you're going to kind of cull who you want to be in the room, because they need to believe in the framing question or the aspirational statement. They need to fundamentally, they just need to believe it and want to work towards it. I know what you're saying in terms of maybe there are people who, don't want this commission to be successful, or maybe have ulterior motives, or whatever it is. I don't know what you mean in terms of quality of people, or like the quality of people. But I guess that would be the North Star I would kind of, put in front of you as to what is that thing, so that when we all get in a room, we're agreeing that this is what we're working towards. If you don't believe in this, or if you don't want to do that, then it's not going to be a good fit for you to be in the room.
And that North Star is what you want us to be able to provide to that group.
Yeah, so before we get into the strategic doing session, and I actually have brought a few packets so you can see, so I'll pass those out in a second, but we really do need to get to a framing question or an aspirational statement that is something that you feel is achievable. I think I gave an example during the training that was from the Inclusive Economic Development Plan that was quite nuanced. But I said that is helpful in a way, because you can be very specific, but some are very broad. And so I think we need to ideate about that, and it needs to happen before the strategic doing session, obviously, so you know who you need to invite. I think at this moment, since we don't have that, the invitations are gonna need to go out, and people are gonna need to self-select. And I think some of that is just gonna be, do I wanna work with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission or not?
I guess this is Commissioner Krebs here. So I guess I looked at it as we're inviting people as part of a community connection. So some people, like, for example, work in the schools, they can provide information or connect us, that's a connection to the schools and the students, or the teachers, or the nonprofit organizations, because they're working in the community with the people. So I guess I was looking at it as like almost like a networking, people who can bring information, people who can bring connections.
I don't think that's wrong.
Okay.
I mean, I think that is another layer, right? Is that you're also trying to branch out into these sectors, in the work that you've been tasked with. So it makes sense naturally to invite people from those sectors.
I also think a lot of people don't understand what we're doing still. I think there's a lot of people who probably are just like, what is this? What are you guys doing? So I think it would be helpful if we had maybe like a quick blurb of like what we're doing, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you have on your website what you stand for, but yeah, I mean, I agree, like that.
But that's what the aspiration.
But they'd have to take the initiative to go to the website, which means that they're really right?
I know.
So to get it like kind of out there, marketing, or so, if you will, informational, I feel like we need to kind of get some of that out so people even know, because they're gonna, you know, they're gonna look at this thing and be like, well, what is this? Or, why would I go?
Yeah, Commissioner Murray, I want to sort of answer one of your questions where you talked about blob. When we were creating that list, there was actually a letter drafted that was sent to the people that we were inviting, explaining what we're inviting them to and what we are about.
The draft email does have that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some sort of idea
I didn't look at it close enough,
when that
obviously.
list was being created. Yeah.
That was language that we came up with that was really trying to give people a sense of what is, and it's in your packet. So it is, you know, who the commission is very broadly, and then what is strategic doing.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so to your point about the aspirational statement, that certainly could be something that the commission adopts as this is what we're doing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So people have a better sense, or if it helps marketing, it could be a slogan. I mean, really, truly, like, you know, this is, in my humble opinion, this is uncharted territory even for myself, you know, because you're doing something different. This is much more public facing. And you're tasked with doing it. So yeah, that is something that we do need to get to, and I don't know if it's something in terms of sending the invites. I think with the draft email the way it is, it's okay, but I think I'm going to have to try and put something together to get you all to thinking about what that could be, because I know it can be hard to just stare at a blank piece of paper.
So that's not something we can start tonight, you don't think?
Let me hand
Bruce, throw a couple things around. Why not? I off the top of the
I
head.
feel like this is, kind of need to get something going there.
Yeah, for sure. This might just help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does Stephanie
Bringing out
already
the
have a
best
copy
in
of this?
Iowa City, or something along those lines. There we
Stephanie
go.
already have
Bringing
a
out
copy
the
of
best
this?
people and try to bring out bring people
Okay.
together. Let's just start brainstorming it, throwing it out there, and see what sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up for it if people are for it. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a strategic doing packet that we would go through this day. It's called an action pack. Before I get too far, I don't know, since Marlene is on the phone, I don't want to, or on the call, I don't want to ignore her. Is it okay if I just have her introduce herself?
Of course.
Please, Marlene.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, V, so much for inviting me to this space. And I have the context of the meeting for today. And I just wanted to say that it is really hard for you all to, I guess I want to say, trust the process of strategic doing without ever going through it once. And I say that because I participated in the One for Better Together, as well as the One for Johnson County Inclusive Economic Development Plan. But I will say that it is a really great framework where you do point the North Star through the framing question. The question itself will bring the people that are interested in answering the question to the table. And it is a really great tool so that you start to see assets, connections, and things that is just outside of just monetary value or anything like that, to really help people come together to the table to come up with real action steps. And I mean, I can say that from all the things that I participated in, I've never gone through a type of facilitation that actually walked away with concrete next steps in half a day, which, it's really hard because you can be in meetings for so long. I mean, we have all experienced that. So I am excited to see what would happen from the strategic doing and doing it in this setting, like V is saying. And I do have to hop off, but I do want to say this one thing. I have been working a lot with the Spanish-speaking community, the Latino community, and I will say that if you all are exploring doing a strategic doing in multiple languages, to have and carve out space for them to do it in that language. It is not conducive to have it translators on site with different languages because people cannot fully engage and participate. And for these types of activities, you do want to have people fully be able to immerse and engage and have the dialogue and go back and forth and not be kind of like interrupted through through translators or be kind of put to the side with other languages. And I've just had too many experiences where it's not beneficial to the people who are coming in to really be fully immersed. And it is a little disruptive for everybody else who has to kind of wait to go back and forth. So I respect the decision that you all decide. I am excited to see what comes out of it. And I just want to say that if need be, I'd be more than happy to help assist the committee as well as V if you all decide to do one obviously in the situation, a Spanish-speaking strategic doing session. So, and my name is Marla Mendoza, and I'm with Mendoza Consulting, and this is what I do for my business, aside from other things other hats that I wear in the community. And I'll also be happy to answer any questions for the next 5 minutes or so.
I also want to quickly say that Marlene will be joining us as a third facilitator and on that day, because we actually anticipate quite a few folks.
Thank you for the feedback on that, Marlene.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So unless there are any questions for Marlene, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview, and then absolutely, I'm totally down to just throw some stuff out. And I think you all have been talking and thinking about this for years, so happy to do that. Really quickly, you can kind of see at the top, what could we do together? That's your framing question. What are we doing here? Again, it could be a question, it can be an aspirational statement. Framing question could be like, how are we going to end racism in Iowa City? So the whole rules here, as you can see, are trying to create that safe space. What could we do? What should we do? What will we do? And then the 30-30 is we check in every 30 days. In this case, it'll be what's the 14-14 every 14 days.
Other week.
Yeah, every other week, because you all will be meeting twice a week. So then this is where you kind of, this Rule 3, uncovering the hidden assets that people will share. And so everybody is put into small groups. 5 is usually the most you want to have, just so everybody has a chance to talk. And then we have people actually sticky on different colors on a board, all of the assets, whether that's capital, physical, those kinds of things, financial, as you can see, social network assets. Then we do what we call Lincoln leverage. And so you're trying to put things together by asking questions. What would that look like if we put, the van with the trombone player, with the, event that happened, like all of the things, you start kind of moving those around and coming up with ideas from the people at the table. And then we move on into creating those new strategic opportunities. So you would describe it. What is the opportunity, and then what is a little bit more detail about that opportunity in a couple different phrases, just almost like an elevator pitch. Because what you're going to do next is called the Big Easy. And this is kind of the crux, and I think I described this last time about, on page 5, if you look at, what is the impact versus the ease of completion? What is it high impact but not easy? You want it to be in that top right, high impact, high ease, right? What's the easiest thing we can do for the most bang? These are scored, and you can come up, I think I've been in groups that have had 12 to 15. But then when you come out of this, you're like, oh, well, really we only have 2 that fit that top right quadrant. But it's not that we throw away the others. It's just that now we know what may be our best shot. And then you convert those big easies into, you break it out and you get more descriptive. What does it look like? What would it be like if it was successful? What does that look like? And then on the last page, that's where we come out with our Pathfinder projects. Now what'll happen is we're in small groups, we do this Big Easy, we come up with all these different projects, and then people move into those Pathfinder projects. So you may have started someplace, but you were called to another because you thought that idea was more suited to your own assets. And then you can see there's a checklist. Will it engage people? You don't need permission to carry it out. That's something that we stress time and time again. You have to be able to be the person that has the asset that can do the thing. You can't ask for permission because you just need to do it. And then an action plan, which is super important. These last 2 pages, 8 and 9, are incredibly important because it's exactly what Marlene was talking about. Every single person walks away with a task. You can't walk away without a task. You can't walk away having assigned your assistant the task. Like, you have to be doing the thing. And then the last one is, when are we coming back and reporting? So that's pretty much it. And then the rest is just sharing contact and all that kind of stuff. So that's the process of it. I wanted you to have a physical copy so that you could kind of see it in front of you. Happy to answer any questions about that, or also help lead a conversation around a framing question or aspirational statement.
So the framing question is the first part. If I'm not mistaken, again, framing question is the first. Then that brings them together as far as the projects or as far as the.
So you are going to decide the framing question,
Correct.
and then everybody's going to write it down. So we go into that meeting with the framing question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about like something, how do we empower our community to handle racial injustice? Or how do we elevate our community, or how do we elevate our people to be more inclusive community? Something like that. I want it to be like empower, elevate. I'm just throwing stuff out.
I think that's very good. You should keep throwing stuff out.
So we have 3 tasks. So what if it's more of a posing question? What does Iowa City look like if we have solved racial injustice? Or what does it look like if our community is able to come together and heal from past traumas due to racial injustice?
Or how do we heal our community from the traumas of racial injustice? Or
I was thinking something more along the lines of, how do we cultivate empathy?
How do we cultivate empathy?
Empathy.
Okay.
Can you speak more to that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was trying to think of, like, what is the biggest picture? What is the most general thing that we want to do from which all the things we want to see happen would be the consequences? And so that's why, to me, it's fundamentally, it's about cultivating empathy, and then all these other things become the natural sequelae of that action, of that activity. And you can start to think about, okay, what are the ways to cultivate that? Would be the outcomes associated with people becoming increasingly empathetic.
So when I think of that, in general, it gets closer to people are the problem, and then people are the solution. And where the challenge I have is that it is a system situation. And what I've also found is pretty interesting as I started to think about it, and I was watching the 3 days, and I was watching kind of what the discussion was, is that it seems that now every group that comes in that we call marginalized or BIPOC, every group that comes in is experiencing the exact same system, from indigenous people to African Americans to many new immigrants that are coming in, are experiencing this exact same system. And some of them are dealing with it differently, but they're still having a still significant impact on how they're able to operate. Mm. You with me?
Yeah.
So the system, it's not so much the people as it is the system. Now the people that support the system, or accidentally, or purposely, whether it's purpose or accidentally supports the system, there's something to say about that. But it's a system that makes it then difficult to say, can I grow my business? I think about the indigenous community, and my limited experience, for example, was around things related to gaming, and how there were certain places would have the ability to start doing gaming, and a lot of that would happen on, on lands that the indigenous folks would own, and then how it started to, as people started to have this great need for more revenue, they started to take gaming and put it in a variety of different places, and then again make this pot smaller for everyone. And so it's this thing to me around, if it's a system issue, then what is it that we're saying? Because we're all experiencing the system. It's like the Matrix. Then what is it that allows us to be able to thrive within the system while it exists, or to, for lack of a better word, destroy the system and create a new system that allows us to be who we can authentically, truly be, unapologetically, that thing.
So maybe something about deconstructing, how do we dismantle
Systemic.
Systemic.
I've written down a few. How do we address institutionalized racism while healing and empowering our community members that have been harmed?
Will you say it again?
How do we address institutionalized racism / systems of oppression / racist systems, I don't know, however you want to say it, while healing and empowering our community members that have been harmed?
Can you put the first part first? Can you put the last part first?
Racist systems?
No.
No,
the healing part.
The healing?
Heal and empower people, and then
Empowering people.
Healing and empowering our community members that have been harmed by racist institutions, institutionalized racism.
Yeah.
It's like starting a car and you almost get it started. We're there. We're almost there.
The reason why I said, how do we address institutionalized racism, was to do that, right? To address it, to dismantle, to deconstruct.
How do we
right?
dismantle institutionalized racism while empowering and healing our communities or something?
Well, and you could flip it. You could say, how do we heal and empower our community while dismantling?
Heal fast or do we dismantle?
Yeah, it's a good point, is what are you putting
I think
first?
healing is thinking forward while still recognizing the past.
Yeah.
Right. My feeling is that if we could thrive in this current system, we'd be fine. Even if it is what it is, whatever the system.
Yeah, and people
If we
have,
could.
and we have thrived.
We figured out how to
For
survive.
the last 400 something years, yeah.
So we figured out how to survive versus thrive.
Yeah.
But if we could thrive, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to be more of the empowering of how do we,
Empower.
I like the word
heal.
thrive.
right? How do we this move forward? You with me?
Yeah.
And then if the moving forward means the system has to change, then so be it. But this really is about people being able to thrive.
How do people thrive? I guess that's almost as simple as it is. How do we thrive?
But I think breaking down the institutional injustices.
I think it's the only way
we
to.
are going to thrive.
I think it's the only way to do
it. If we've got the boot on our neck, we've got it.
How do we heal and empower our community to thrive while dismantling institutionalized racism or oppression? I'm trying to put thrive in there.
Chad, it's on you.
How do we
Some of us were
heal and empower our community
it was okay
to
the
thrive?
first way.
I think heal and empower is good.
I like it. I think there's something, it's almost there, like you said.
I think, though, I'm just confused because it still seems too abstract to me,
How do we empower and heal?
like focusing it on the system.
That's why I don't want to focus. I want to focus on the ability for us to live our best life. And if the system has to die in order for us to do that, then so be it. It has had its life. It's time for it to move on. But for us, we must continue to grow, and we don't want anything to get in our way. And eventually, our numbers will be such that we will be able to change almost every system, or we'll be almost to force every system to not negatively impact us. But that's sometime way in the future. That may be, 400 years from now.
Yeah, we also have to break down how we've internalized
Bingo.
the system
Absolutely.
within ourselves.
Bingo.
Or we're going to perpetuate it.
Or we're going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
We're going to be our worst enemy on that. So that's why I wanted for us to do, and then for the system to be at the end.
So focusing on the empowering of the people, and then also this is what,
It is power to the people.
yeah.
It seems like there needs to be a little bit of like also hope in
Yes.
there. Like,
I just get concerned that when I look at the news,
Yes.
the last thing I think about sometimes is power to the people, because who I see are people who all of a sudden feel empowered to no longer empathize, and who are just...
Say more about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Say more.
they're people who are full of fear and full of hate, and they've been told it's okay. And that's, to me, what somehow there has to be a way to, it's a person. I mean, it's not the system, it's not, I mean, the system is there, the system does all kinds of things, but
the system is what indoctrinates people. It's where ideologies come from.
So this is an example of what happened today with one of my friends who's in sales, right? And he was in a community that there are very few people like him. And so there's a person that came and sat next to him and asked him, an older person came next to him, asked him the question. He says, do black people, is it hotter for you than it is for us white people? He said, I'm not racist, but is it hotter for you black people than it is?
So it's about educate. How do we educate?
It's not even the concept of that we have to educate anyone to achieve. You could be excellent by just simply being excellent. You could, right, if you had the things that many people have, your ability to be excellent would not be a problem. It is not. But there are things that are in the way that says that because you don't have the relationship you need with the bank, that when you start going to the bank to get something, and that person that you talk to, it's that person that talks to their friends that gets in the way of you getting the thing that you are trying to get from the bank. And you just don't have that relationship in such a way, because the system is set up that, again, it allows people that have that privilege to thrive. It just allows them to achieve excellence, right? They don't have to even be excellent to achieve it, because everything that's in their place, everything supports, it supports them.
It has been created for them.
But you're already on truth of our work, of the TRC's work, truth. You've already given us some glimpse. No.
So truth, empathy, is that sounds like that's something to start off with, right?
I'll remove the empathy, but the truth.
Why remove the empathy?
Are we focusing on, I guess, to me, I'm tailoring this to our communities that we're wanting truth from. So, I want to empower them. Empathy, to me, we need empathy from the people in power.
Well, that's why we should say that we should bring that into the question, because we are looking to get them to understand what it's like and what we're dealing with, and also empower us at the same time. Truth, we take the truth of what we deal with and we get them to understand and empathize, instead of saying, oh, well, why do you guys feel heat different? Instead say, don't you understand how horrible that sounds to say to me? So empathize, put yourself in that situation. That's like me saying, do you reflect light more, or something like that. So to empathize, to get them to understand how that holds us down and feels just uncomfortable in general. Isn't that something that we want to try to put out there? We're asking businesses to basically help us soften our environment to make sure that we're all feeling included. Right?
I think that at least what I'm hearing is like there's always two different debates when what we're talking about oppression and racism. There's the systems, and then there's the individual. And when I hear individual, I hear us talking about how can I individually, like, I guess, eradicate racism. But if you think about it from a systems perspective, you can never do that because it's systematic. And so anyone, whether you're on the oppressor side or the descendant oppressor side, or you're on the oppressed, you can't do it individually. And I think collectively as a community, at least that's how I see what we're trying to do, is how can we effectively make change systematically. And so empathy is great, but it's not going to always break through.
I'm confused at how that works, because empathy, to me, is how you break through. You have to get people to understand and feel the exact same thing that you're feeling, and then put themselves in your shoes, and then say, if that was me, do I want my kid to feel that way?
Of course. And I feel empathy every single day. I feel like, personally, I think I value empathy. It is very valuable for me, but maybe I'm not saying it correctly. Maybe I'm saying,
I think that very good.
Yeah, no, I think you're actually both right, to be honest. Right. I think it's a both and. I think it's an all and. It's like, at this point, you need everything to break the system. So
I disagree on that. And the reason I'm going to disagree is that, again, we've tried this several times. We've tried several times to approach it from a person, an individual, that if we can just change them, they will understand the pains that we're going through. And my generation, the Generation X, we were going to solve all of this because we saw it all, right? We experienced everything. So now we're going to go and fix it. Now my generation, right? My generation is the one that doesn't like, teaching law classes for kindergartners. So there is this concept around, if we can get people to see this injustice, then they will change. What I think we've experienced is it builds concern and fear and makes them want to change less. And that is, to me, where there is a concern. And I would say, and that's where I don't know how much we can care about the challenges that people individually are going through as much as we have to think about the system.
Yes.
And how do we allow ourselves to even be at our best and brightest, because we hold ourselves back just so that we can survive and not thrive.
I'm going to say something very blunt because I don't know how else to say it. I am not interested in appealing to the empathy of oppressors. I feel like after all the things that have been televised and witnessed and all of the things, if you don't have the empathy by now, I don't have time for that. I have other stuff to do. So again, that was the blunt way to say it. I don't know how to say it in a nice way. I'm sorry.
No, I think that this is the space to be blunt. I guess what I'm saying, the only reason why I was saying it's a both and, because you need people to feel like they have control over something, and it's hard to feel like you have control over a system. But I have a control, I interact with my neighbor. My neighbors are, whatever. But I don't interact with the food system, in ways that I would like to change it. That's the only reason why it's like, the personal is political. I'm not saying that that's not my path all the time. Like I am in agreements that like it needs to fundamentally change. So that said, I think that y'all are coming from a lot of the same places. You may just go about it different ways. The one thing I wanted to redirect us to was the question. And so I think it's a good conversation about like systems of oppression.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Okay.
But let me just ask you this.
Yeah.
And ask this as a chair. Let me ask you, when is our next meeting?
It's 2 weeks from today, the 7th.
So I'm going to try to help out.
Yeah.
We have to get something out anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to send something out to people and say, come help us and gather, right, to get together. We have another meeting, right, that we can come up with something that's before our meeting on the 14th. Does that meet your need if we have it by our next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's totally fine. I was prepared to do that. I actually didn't think we would do this tonight, so that is fine. I was only reconsidering that thought because of what Commissioner Krebs said about trying to get things out to people. It won't be in the email. We'll still have the email draft that we have, which I guess is probably enough. But I'll be honest, typically, we don't even reveal the framing question until we get in the room.
So that's what I'm saying. Since we don't reveal it until we get in the room, we can think about this, talk to each other.
I just would highly encourage you to do that because I don't want to come back here next time and, we're
No, I understand you would feel uncomfortable if we're in the same spot. But I do think that there is the opportunity, right? Because I don't believe that it was clear to me at the last meeting
Yeah.
that you needed that. I thought what was clear was we need around 30 people to come to this meeting.
What about if we started off in something like in the spirit of some of our great leaders like Martin Luther King and all these people who show love and empathy? What if we started off on something along those lines like that?
To Commissioner Simmons' point, I mean, I think that write all these down and talk amongst yourself. I can send you what I was going to say was the question that I was hearing and trying to write some things down, and I have some others, are how do we provide safer spaces for people to tell their truth, heal, and be empowered while dismantling systems that have dehumanized and devalued us? It's not perfect. It's just what I was hearing was a lot of, the commission. We also have to remember that the commission's task is the truth, fact-finding, and reconciliation. So you do kind of want to lead people in that area, creating safer spaces for the authenticity, for the truth, for the courage, for all of those things, and getting the healing and all that. So I can send this out. I was just trying to kind of capture what folks were saying. There were other words in there, like, making empower, elevate. I'll write down the first thing that I wrote that kind of started the conversation, and just encourage folks, just know that that'll be an agenda item that hopefully we can figure that out. But yeah, absolutely, let's table it for now. But it's a really great conversation, because these are the kinds of conversations you don't get to have, right?
Yeah. I would agree. I think this was a great conversation. It's really good to know what we're all thinking. I mean, we are the leaders for this, so we have to know if we're on the same page, if we're not on the same page. So I appreciate the discussion and everyone's viewpoint.
The last thing I wanted to review with you was when we had talked last, we discussed the accessibility of this 14th and 16th. And it was talked a lot about like translation and interpretation. After talking again with Marlene and sitting down and talking with ENG, we really strongly urged the commission to consider our proposal of having this session in English and then hosting a separate one in Spanish entirely, because we don't have enough facilitators in strategic doing that are, fluent in French and Swahili. Hopefully we can get there, but I think it does show and provide a space for people in their native language to communicate and, collaborate in ways that are just fundamentally harder with small group work on this level. So if you'd be okay with that, I would like to kind of move forward with that, or I don't know if you need a vote or whatever that may be, because it would be contracting her services for that. We do have funding set aside. We have that $10,000 that we could pay her out of, and I can share with you what she had. I can email that, her rates and things like that, but she also needs to know whether or not she can move forward, but maybe we could.
So I just had. Oh, sorry.
Did you go ahead?
I was just going to say, could we even maybe take some of that funding from the budget?
Well, they have their own budget that can go towards this.
We had $10,000 set aside for community partners.
Right.
And I just wanted to.
I don't think we want to take it from our budget that we were putting together, because we're going to need those dollars for the PAX September.
So her facilitation fee would be $2,000 for that facilitation.
Okay.
Which is, obviously up to you all. We're going to be hiring her separately for that as that third facilitator, so we'll be paying for that. But anyway, if I could even just get head nods so that she could, I don't know how you guys work this.
I had a quick question, if that's okay. So, I respect y'all's expertise. That's why we hired you. Okay. So if you believe this is necessary, I'm all for it. But my question is how do we make sure that the project is connected? Is it, whether that be we have some of us present or people that come to the first one and our dual language speakers and they come to it, we definitely don't want to have a disconnect, and we don't want people to feel like they're just pushed to the side because they don't speak English.
We talked a little bit about this too, and so that's another reason why Marlene wanted to know. She obviously would be attending our sessions so that she could bring that. She has already set aside she would be doing it the following week. She encouraged commissioners to attend. It's also an incredible experience, I will say personally, to, be in somewhere that it's entirely in Spanish, is really incredible to be a part of, just to try and understand. But again, that framing question will still be what guides them. So fundamentally, they will be linked to your work. And then Marlene will come back that following. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably the training session for
October.
She's going to come back in September 21st and present the findings of that. So we'll figure that out timing wise. Maybe it'll just be an email. I don't know, but we'll make sure that you get the information for those pathfinders that come out of that project or that session.
I would also request if at least we have one of us there to just say hi. We're so happy to have that translated.
Absolutely. So that's what we had discussed was if there were commissioners that'd be willing to attend.
Okay.
Yeah, even if just
but it wouldn't be a quorum.
Okay. Right. Yeah, and she has the date, so we could share that.
Okay. Perfect.
It's the following week. So if that's okay, I'll go ahead and move forward. I don't know if you need a vote.
I don't think. Do we need a vote for this, Stephanie?
Before that, I have a question to you, Vi.
Yeah.
How did they approach you, or did you approach
Marlene?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of other very marginalized group. I'm thinking of people who just speak Swahili. I know you mentioned them, and Arabic. So do you approach them, or do they find you if they are part of our community and part of
absolutely
very marginalized groups?
Yes. And so one thing that we had talked about was obviously this is a first run. And so what maybe make it a little bit more accessible is to have the strategic doing session on the Thursday, and then on that Friday see if folks want to attend the Pathfinder. The Pathfinders will be set, and so then we could determine if we need translation services for those Pathfinders, because that's not really small group work, and then build those relationships and start working on, maybe other projects come out of people, in the room and working together. It's really just, I want the commission to think of this as a first step that hopefully will lead into other things that happen. It's not perfect, and it's, again, in our community, I wish we had more strategic doing practitioners that were multilingual.
Is it possible to have translators for you all if we were to do an Arabic or a Swahili in the future, but everyone there is speaking that language, but we're translating the facilitators? Would that be difficult?
I would certainly be up for it. I would certainly be up for that. That would be an interesting experience. Yeah,
so I think the facilitator would guide them, and they would do the translation for the guidance, and then they could do their thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that could. I think that could work. Actually, that might be a better workaround.
And in the past, when we had people who were just speaking Spanish, we would all be in the room, and there would be interpreters, so that we all go all together.
Are you talking about the fully Spanish session? If you attended, would there be translators for you?
I'm thinking in the past where we have had Spanish speakers come to the TRC. We would all be together. They wouldn't do something there on the side, and then we are having reports going back and forth between the two groups. But it would all be in the room with interpreters, so that we who are speaking English would be interpreted to them in the room, and they would be interpreted to us. Yeah.
For the report out?
What did you say?
For the report out? For when they're done? Are you talking about that?
No, the way it's standing to me right now, there's that group, and then there'll be reports going back and forth, versus all of us in the same room, and it being interpreted at the same time. I guess this is different than what I'm used to.
It is, and It is different, yeah. So, but that is correct in what you're saying, was that it would be kind of a back and forth. I think one thing that it really engenders when we did this for Inclusive Economic Development Plan is that community, the sense of community within there that is, I don't know, lack of a better word, like sacred. There's just like community members feel like they can speak freely, they are familiar with things, those kinds of things. So it does work in that sense. Like in that way, it is better. I don't even want to say better. In that way, it is different. So yeah, but I think that is what you're looking at, some translations back and forth. And then you asked how I knew Marlene Mendoza. I've been working with her in the community and then found out actually that she was trained in strategic doing. And when I've looked at our strategic doing practitioner site for Iowa, this is who we have in the area. So in terms of like procurement, I always want to be sensitive to that, not trying to like hire my friends.
Yeah, but I appreciate you've actually brought, that's a part of the community that I've been missing since we began this work. So I'm really appreciative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that they are on the table.
Yeah, Marlene is very excited and honored to be called into this work, so. Any other questions? We had asked about, do we need a vote? I just want to be able,
Do we need a vote, Steph?
The vote would be about allocating the 10,000 that is set aside in the facilitators.
As far as I know, just, I guess it is that, but I was thinking going ahead with a second strategic doing all in Spanish and moving forward.
I think you can vote on that, yeah.
So we should vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so how should I frame this?
Just a separate Spanish strategic doing session.
Okay, so I moved that we allow the facilitators to move forward with a second strategic doing session in Spanish.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Okay, Commissioner Dillard?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. Oh.
Johnson.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going out of order. Commissioner Gathewa?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Krebs?
Yes.
And Commissioner Tassinari?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. And if there's nothing else with strategic doing, I'll move on. I don't believe we have anything to discuss for the facilitator work plan. So we'll move past that. And I don't believe there is any correspondence. So I'll move on to the last one, which is announcement of commissioners. Just remember that we are not to respond to each other during this section. So first, Stephanie, as far as staff updates. All right, if there's any commissioner announcements, go ahead now. And if there's not, I move to adjourn. Okay, thank you.